Hi, welcome to another video. This is Mr. Chow from EnglishTuition.org. This will probably be a slow video. I think I have been in this teaching profession for 10 years. So I think I just want to do a video to just kind of share my personal experience, just in case there is someone out there who may want to consider going into this line of work, right? You may have certain questions about the what is it like being a private tutor. How is the work like? Is it something that is fun, that's enjoyable? Well, I will try to share my experiences in this video, so just watch to the end. We can start with three common myths and perceptions, and these beliefs generally come from people who are not in the profession, right? And they think that this is how teaching or private tutoring is like. All right. First of all, many people think that private tutoring is very lucrative, is easy money, right? And that private tutors are all very wealthy, driving sports cars and stuff. Um, we will talk about that later. Secondly, about the workload, private tutors tend to have smaller classes compared to teaching in private schools, where you get a class of about 30, even 40 students. And the perception is that small classes are generally easier to teach. So we can talk about that as well. And the third one is that private tutors have tons of freedom because they have flexible work schedule. They work during off office hours, and they don't have to apply leave. Right? So one by one, we will go into the myths and the beliefs, and we can talk about whether that is true or not. Right? So what is it like being a private tutor in Singapore? So let's talk about the money issue first, right? First of all, is it lucrative, right? A lot of people think that, well, it's just, easy money, right? But the truth is that it actually pays decent. I'm definitely not one of the wealthiest person around. Of course, it is nowhere near what my peers are making in various industries, right? At my age, right? I talk to them, sometimes they share with me privately how much they are making, and many of them are, like in senior management positions, and they are definitely making more than me, okay? So you can make a living out of it, and I'm sure there are very successful private tutors. They are making like really good money, 500,000, but the workload and the number of students that they teach are very different, right? Compared to my scale, right? I teach a very small scale, a very small handful of students. And I think most private tutors are okay with this workload. We'll talk more about the workload later, right? But if you have, you're so successful and they are teaching like huge classes, so, then it's different, right? And I think most tutors who teach like one-to-one, small group tuition, they're like me, okay? Earning average pay, okay? Well, the fees also need to be somewhat competitive. We don't want to price ourselves out of the market by charging like ridiculous fees. So we just want to keep the fees under control, right? And fees need to be reasonable, so that affects your pay as well, okay? And of course, being a private tutor, we all need to be comfortable with fluctuating salary, okay? We don't earn the same month to month. But having said that, the fluctuations are not very big, to be honest, right? And generally speaking, over the years, I've seen, growth in the pay just simply based because I have more students, right? I think I only over 10 years only increased my fees once, okay? And I try to not increase my fees at all right? So this is something that I think private tutors need to think about, right? We don't always get the same salary. And for me, like for students who don't come for lessons sometimes due to sick leave and stuff, I don't charge them fees for the lessons. I understand a lot of tuition centers, they don't have that practice because they have their cost, right? They have to pay rental and stuff. And when students are absent, they still have to pay for the seats because the vacancy is that seat is for them, right? The cost and the resources are allocated for them. So it makes sense for them to continue paying, but for me, I don't actually charge them. All right, and again, that affects my pay as well, right? But I'm comfortable with that, and I think all tutors need to be comfortable with the level of salary that they're earning, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the industry for very long. And of course, there's no paid leave, okay? So we have the commitment that, this is the time slot for the teaching, and we just have to turn up and teach, right? We cannot apply leave, right? Of course, we can try to get somebody to do relief teaching, but in a small scale environment, it's not very practical, right? So most of the time, I just have to turn up, even if it's just a little bit feeling unwell, a little bit of headache, I just turn up and teach. Okay, that's the experience. Okay, next, let's talk about the workload itself, right? The reality is being a private tutor easier compared to maybe, I don't know, teaching in a public school. Okay, I think as far as teaching is concerned, we do have to deal with both parents and students, right? I remember when I first went for my teaching course, I have a fellow classmate who mentioned to me that no, she won't be teaching, being a private tutor. She won't be a private tutor because she doesn't enjoy dealing with parents, right? Because she believes that some parents can be rather difficult, and therefore, she's just there for the skills, right? The teaching skills. So I think tutors need to be comfortable. Now, my personal experience is that most parents are generally nice and reasonable, right? I don't have problems with them being rude. I don't have problems collecting fees from them. So they're just nice to deal with, all right? But there will be the oddball who, like they who are rude, right? And I have parents who lost their temper with me, okay? Simply because over a WhatsApp message, okay? And my parents whom call me nasty names, but those are the minority, fortunately. And I enjoy interacting with the parents, right? We just have a good time, chatting about the students' progress, and that's it, okay? Now, as for the students, most students that I encounter are rather teachable. They come from neighborhood schools. They are not from like the maybe the elite schools or the IP schools, right? But of course, as usual, a handful of them will always be easily distracted and they are harder to teach, more stubborn. But again, most of them, 8 out of 10, are very teachable. So my teaching small group of up to 3 students, I can afford to give them a lot of personal attention. Okay, so I don't have a lot of classroom management issues. I sometimes still encounter some of these students who like cannot sit still, always distracted, always want to chat, always want to talk, okay, and they cannot keep quiet, right? They are very restless, okay. Sometimes, given a little bit of time, they change for the better. Sometimes they do not. Then it makes the teaching a little bit more challenging. But by and large, most students who come to me are quite polite and they are eager to learn. Okay, so that is a very positive sign. I do feel that, and of course it's just a personal opinion, I do feel that students generally need a bit more discipline, right? And because I think parents nowadays just let their kids do whatever they want. They're rather soft with them and they don't do homework. The parents may not have the time, right, to supervise them. So nobody is teaching them about discipline, attitude, and that kind of things, right? So I do find that sometimes I do need to talk to them nicely about these things, and most of them do listen, and hopefully over time they learn what it takes right, in order, to be able to achieve their personal goals. All right, and it has a little bit to do with discipline, right? And for me, smaller groups are of course easier to manage, right? Private tutoring, mine is only three, right? And I think in the private practice for tuition centers, maybe you manage up to 6 or even up to 12, but that is still the group is still a lot smaller compared to the neighborhood schools or the public schools where you get 30 to 40 students. So yeah, it's true in a way that smaller groups are easier to manage. And for me, I think for a lot of private tutors as well, we don't have KPIs, right? We don't have boss watching over us, telling us that this is our KPIs, this is what you're supposed to deliver, right? But the parents and students do expect us to deliver results, right? So the performance of the students, that's our KPI, okay? So we need to be able to get results. So for all private tutors, I think we all need to sit down and really think about how we're supposed to help the students. And for me, because it's a small group teaching, I don't just think about the whole crop of students, how to improve their results. Of course, I do think about that, but I also try to go, you know, dive beyond, right, the group and look at the student one to one, right? I can afford to do that because there's only like 2 or 3 students in the group. So I look at them and maybe I think, okay, student A, is this what I need to do? This is his temperament. These are his tendencies. What is he lacking? Maybe he's lacking, the learning gap in the language. There's a gap there, right, that needs to be filled, right? Maybe there are certain years that he did not pay attention in class or he did not attend tuition, and then there are gaps that need to be filled. So I do think about that and work with them, closely to help them achieve the result. It's not easy, right? And it's a time-consuming process. But I think if you're talking about getting results, we need to do that, right, to accelerate that progress, all right? Okay, next, let's talk about the workload. You think being a private tutor is easy, right? So this is my workload. I teach on weekends and a couple of weekdays. Every week I get about 2 off days per week. So what do I need to do? What's my workload? So I do need to plan for lessons on non-teaching days, okay, and think of maybe new stuff and materials to come up with. And yes, there's marking involved, right? And every week I give homework, right? So I need to mark their homework. And I think for a language subject, that the marking is more time consuming, because sometimes if I ask them to write certain like competitions or essays, I need to really look at their work, okay? Also need to create and update my teaching materials. Whenever there are changes in syllabus, there are revisions to be made. And if I see any gaps in the teaching, and I may need to create more new teaching materials, right, to fill up these gaps. I use both hard copies and digital resources nowadays, to as part of my teaching. Okay, so all this can be rather time consuming, right? If you really need to sit down and craft out the lesson plans to teach the students. And personally, I think for me, by the end of the year, near the exam period, after I finish the end of year mock assessment, I'm usually quite exhausted, in truth, to be honest, right? I'm looking forward to recharge and take a break. So usually November and December, I don't teach, right? So I get 1.5 months to 2 months off. Right, December I reserve for my some of the weaker students. Sometimes on some years there are no weak students, so I get December off as well. But if there are weak students who want to come back during the December to do a little bit of catching up, then I have to teach, right, during December. So that is kind of the workload that I have. Question, is it manageable? I think overall it is manageable. And stress levels can be managed. right? And you take into consideration the off days, the school holidays, and I think all in all is okay. Okay, I don't want to work myself, to the point of exhaustion, and then I want to quit my job. Okay, not to the extent. But I am in charge of everything, right? Being self-employed, being a one-man show, from student recruitment to answering inquiries from parents, etc. So all these little things, they do take up your time, all right? So it's almost like it's like a full-time job. Okay, it is a full-time job, all right? Yeah. So like I said, stress levels are high during exam periods, and generally speaking, the teaching itself is a bit demanding. If you think about it, students need a lot of encouragement, a lot of reminders, and that means a lot of repetition, right? So you don't have the patience, you don't have um, you know you don't have the patience to repeat stuff, right, to the students. Then teaching may not be for you, right? So um, if students forget things, right, and you have to remind them, you have to just keep talking to them, right, and that in itself can be tiring, right? You do it day in day out. Okay, next let's talk about the freedom of the job, right? Is it like true that we really get a lot of freedom just by being a private tutor, right? So I'm not self-employed, so there's no need to apply leave. So that's why maybe there's a common belief that, oh, because you're self-employed, you're your own boss, you can take leave whenever you want. I don't think that is really true. Okay, because my weekends are burned. Okay, I teach the whole day during weekends, so weekends are my most tiring days for the week. Um, and there's a need to balance family life and work, because if your family members are busy during the weekdays and they are off during the weekends, so that's the opposite routine. So you do have to find time to spend with your family, right? Somehow. Okay, I don't have sick leave. Okay, you already know that. I don't get paid. Okay, if I fall sick and I don't teach. All right, so that's it, right? That's what I have to share, right? Ultimately, the final question that we have to ask ourselves, or I have to ask myself, right? I think all private tutors do ask themselves this question every now and then, right? Whenever they encounter, a challenging period. Teaching, is it worth it, right? I think that's rather subjective, and different people will have different views. Um, Maybe I'll share my view later, alright? But if you are watching this video and if you are considering teaching, do ask yourself the following questions. Are you fine with the fluctuating income? So I think there's a baseline, right? So if you're able to hit your base, anything that fluctuates above your base, most of us will be comfortable with that. Your weekends are gone. Can you live with that? Okay, family time will be sacrificed. All right, can you live with that? Do you enjoy being around young kids most of the time, and do you enjoy interacting with parents? And do you enjoy seeing other people succeed? And this is very important, right? And again, this on a very personal level, right? I think some people like to see themselves succeed more than others, right? I think it's a perfectly fine point of view, right? But for as far as teaching is concerned, you do have to help your students to succeed. Okay, so it's a bonus and an advantage if you enjoy seeing other people succeed, and that will give you the motivation, right, to do your job well. Do you have the discipline to work independently, right? And a lot of times, because you're self-employed or you're in the private sector, you may not have be given a lot of guidance and support. For me, I have no superiors, right? I have no boss watching over me. So I do have to have the discipline to work independently, right? Like during your off days, you can't be like, going off with your friends, just to socialize, going for high tea, when you should be at home planning for lessons and working on your teaching materials. So nobody is there to tell you what to do. You have to do it on your own. All right. So if you answer yes, then consider teaching as a profession, right? So you say yes to all the above questions, then maybe teaching is for you, right? But if you have a lot of no's, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, right? No, I'm not fine with sacrificing my weekends, I'm not fine with fluctuating income, and so on and so forth, then maybe teaching is not for you, right? Or maybe teaching in the private sector is not for you, right? To be more specific. Okay, and you should look at other jobs, right? So for me, the main reward, right, for teaching, and I tell all my students that, is that I always get a kick out of receiving messages, or hearing them say that they have succeeded in achieving their goals, right? So that is the real reward, right? Of course, I don't mind getting paid more, right? Because getting paid help pay the bills and stuff, right? But ultimately, the satisfaction and the fulfillment is there, um, because I know there's a lot of joy, right? Watching these kids succeed. And some of the kids have been with me for a very long time, since primary school all the way up to O levels or even A levels, right? So if you think about it, that is a minimum 6, 7, 8 years. I literally watch them grow up. So when I tell you that I'm teaching for 10 years, some of the kids have been with me since the beginning, right? And um, I literally watch them, progress, right, and grow as like a young seedling, to a full grown tree. Okay, so that is very satisfying and a very joyous part of teaching. So if you enjoy seeing the kids succeed, you enjoy seeing other people succeed, then you can seriously consider teaching as a profession, right? Of course, you don't mind the fluctuating pay and stuff, right? But who knows, right? If you can teach very well, and the students take to you, you can take on more students, and you will earn many, many, many times more than me, right? Okay, so that is something personal, right? What level of income are you comfortable with, right? So think about this for yourself, right? And it's definitely very doable, right, as a private tutor, um, to survive, right, even in this challenging economy. All right. So yes, that is something that uh, potential tutors or teachers can think about. All right. So I think I've said enough. This is getting to be quite a lengthy video, and I've come to the end of the video. Right. Thank you so much for watching. Do leave a like and a subscribe to support this small little video channel, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.